Hello, everyone. To all my Facebook family and friends, it is Wednesday afternoon. Wanted to come on out here today, per usual. We have a guest with us who are going to shed some more information and enlighten us some more. And as always, as you are checking in, please let me know that you're in. So, hey, Christy, hey, Auntie, thank you for checking in. I am also going to ask, as we go along, we know that the topic today is politics. And so if you can kind of like gather some questions or kind of think about what questions you may have and, start putting them out there, that would be really, really great. So that we can make sure that not only we provide information, because if you know me, I don't like one-way information. I like to be engaging and make sure that we can ask questions and answer questions. And it can be back and forth. And so as a little bit of background, thank you for joining me. I'm Tiffany L. Hollinger with Ask Tiffany H. And from time to time, I'll come out and provide information, which started off providing financial information and tips regarding financial tips regarding the coronavirus as things morphed, information on small businesses, how to take care of your credit, things to look out for, tools, resources. And then, of course, as time go on, because things happen, we morph into other engagements. Hey, Sheldon, thank you for coming and joining us. So as you come on, please let me know that you are joining and that you turned in. I appreciate you following. So let me know if you all are out there with a hello. And so things right now have morphed into a little bit about politics, because it has an impact on your day-to-day life as well. So I would be remiss if we talked about all the finances and things of that nature and didn't also talk about the state of affairs and how it impacts our life. So I am not going to try to introduce our guest today, as I always let everyone introduce themselves. I did want to just make sure that I showed that Shontel Brown is the District 9 Cuyahoga County representative. And I am happy to have her out here with us today to talk about politics. And sometimes it's a sticky topic. People a lot of times don't want to have those conversations. We know a lot of times in the African-American community it's taboo. We don't talk about finance. We don't talk about money. We don't, we don't talk about our health conditions, which, sometimes cannot be necessarily beneficial for us. And so one of the things that I want to make sure is that as I do these information sessions, especially when it's about politics, my goal is to make sure that I can come out and provide education, that I want to ensure to engage people, a little bit of entertainment, and definitely at the end of the day, empowerment, because that's so important. So with that, how I ran across Ms. Brown here is that I've seen her a couple sessions she did on social media, and she has this like rap about her, and she's why you should get out and vote, and why you should complete the census. And I'm like, yes, we have to make this fun and engaging as well. It can't just be one way. So hey, Marcia, thank you for joining us. So with that being said, if you would be kind enough to just tell us a little bit about yourself, allow you to do your own background or read your own or share your own resume and background with us. We'd love to have you, and thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Tiffany. I'm honored and excited to be here today. Anytime I am given an opportunity to talk about politics, I practically jump at the invitation because, as you indicated, particularly in our community, it's not something that is a popular subject or a sexy subject for that matter. And so it's something that people are often unfamiliar with. But lately, I'm very glad to see the level of interest has grown. And I think that people are recognizing now more than ever how much politics impacts their everyday life. So your timing couldn't be better. My background, I haven't shared this story in a while. I used to probably tell it once a week, but since we've been social and physically distancing, I haven't had a lot of meetings where where I had to kind of introduce myself. So if you will indulge me for just a minute, how I came into politics was by accident, actually. if you remember the earthquake tragedies in Japan in 2011, the tsunami and all of the damage that it did to those communities, it made me stop in my tracks, because much like our news cycles today, it was over and over and over again. So it made me wonder and say, where would we go if we had an emergency situation like that? You know, I live in a community where I am literally less than a block from an elementary school and our senior and civic center. So I thought that's probably where we should go, but let me verify. So I went to my city council meeting and I presented that question, and everyone looked at me like deer in headlights, like what, like who wants to know that? Like who comes to a meeting and asks that question? And that's another thing people should realize. You know, the city council meetings are not very well attended. And so when residents do take the time out of their day to show up, they're given a lot of attention. You know, people see them, they're recognized quite quickly, because quite frankly, legislators and people in government aren't being held accountable as much as they should be, because we have busy lives and things of that nature. So I presented the question after the meeting. The chief of the fire department let me know there was a volunteer organization that handles that type of thing, introduced me to them, but it prompted me to keep coming back to the meetings. And so at each meeting, the gentleman who we've now become friends represented the community. He said the same thing every meeting, that all is well in Ward 5. And I was just like, that's all we get, you know, like no meetings, no meet. And so as much as I had hoped things would be all as well in our community, that just wasn't the case. I had been there for 7 years at the time and started seeing our community decline and slowly decline. And so I thought, rather than complain, be the change you want to see. And so I said, well, let me run for city council. And because the other members of the council were talking about some of the activities in their communities, the meetings that they were having and all of those things. And I'm like, I want that type of representation in my ward too. And so it launched me onto a path that I never envisioned for myself. But I went around to my neighbors, solicited their support, got on the petition got them to sign the petition for me to get on the ballot, campaigned my little heart out, and fast forward, election day came, the polls closed, and I was down by 6 votes. Six votes. So honestly, I thought I lost, and I was okay with that, because as a child of faith, I trust God's infinite wisdom. I knew that I had done everything I could possibly do within my power to try to win that election. So I had moved on. But more politically astute people and more politically experienced said, it's not over. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, no, there are 23 provisional ballots in your race. I'm like, okay, what is that? I don't even know what a provisional ballot is at this point. I'm like, okay, and like that could change the outcome. I'm like, what are you talking about? So 23 is, for people who are watching who aren't familiar, provisional ballots are ballots that are used in elections in different instances. And what it is if you registered to vote at your old address, and let's say you didn't update your new voter location, but you want to vote at your new residence, well, your name is not going to be at the roll for the precinct that you moved to. So they will allow you to vote provisionally in your new precinct, to make sure you're not trying to vote twice in your new precinct or your old precinct. Another reason you might get a provisional ballot is if you request to vote by mail. But the ballot doesn't show up, so now you're like, well, let me go physically vote. So they want it's a tool that you still allow people to vote, but they just want to make sure you're not cheating the system. So fast forward, there are 23 in our race. There are 3 of us on the ballot, and I ended up winning by 7. 7. So it's people
down 6 to win by 7.
Down 6 to win by 7. So it's just faith. We know that 7 represents perfection, completion, and God. So I always tell people I'm here by God's divine intervention, and it keeps me focused on the work of service and reminds me that I'm not here by my own doing, but by His grace and mercy. So I'll stop there. So that's how I got it. So that's
right. That's all right. And thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Eric, for joining. And Teresa, thanks, Christy, for coming on. Hey, Mom. Nice joining. I know you're a little late. It's okay. And thank you, Deborah, for coming in as well. Malcolm, I see you there as well. Thank you for joining. And so, it's interesting because the false statement, a false lexicon that is out there is my vote doesn't count. And, thank you for sharing that story or your testimony, because it just goes to speak to how just the power of really one.
Mm-hmm.
Down from 6 to up by 7. And so that difference really, well, it's probably more than that if you want to be a math person, but analytical people who might try to come in and be like, just the power of a vote, though, a power of a voice. And so, and it's so important to do that. And so I thank you for sharing that. And it speaks to our votes do count and our voice really do make a difference, and so think about the astuteness of the person who did those provisional ballots.
Yes.
Right? Provisional ballot says, I don't care that I moved. I don't care if all of this other, I'm still going to press forward. And those people took the time to press forward.
Yep.
You like the power in making this so. And so, hey, Sharice, hey, Siobhan, hey, Meryl, thank you for joining and coming on live. Thank you for joining us. So let me share. Well, let me ask with you. I know that the county is a relatively new structure.
Yeah.
Come to this area.
Yes.
Very high level. Quickly share with us how this new layer, and this is Cuyahoga County. If I know there are people who are watching who are from other states and whatever. So here in Cleveland, Ohio, and a lot of places have this, but we have our city and we have well-defined municipalities, and our municipalities, or we call them suburbs, are kind of self-governing, and each one of them have their own police district, their mayor, and their own political structure. And so, you have all of these suburbs that are self-defined, but we're all within Cuyahoga County. And so in some recent years, we have had some changes where we now have a layer of legislation at the county level. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know what impact that has, what role they have. And so if you could just share with us really quick, the high level, what this new layer of the Cuyahoga County level legislation bring to this area.
Okay, yes, happily. So if I can, I know you said quickly, but I'm a politician too, bro. So I'm sorry. I know that we have all the time. Then when they're quick, you be like, what?
So before you start though, I'm gonna challenge you.
Okay, go.
Before you start though, I'm gonna challenge you and say, okay, you're gonna have to make a rap about it. So now I just put something on your plate. So then that way, even if it's longer or whatever, we at least can have like, okay.
One step to it. Now, someone beat me to that. I have to send it to you. But I just want to say there's actually 3 levels of government. I say 4 affectionately. So because county. So there's federal level, which is your national level. Then there's the state level. Then there's the regional level, which is what I represent, your county. And then there's the local level. And I also like to do an analogy for folks, especially the guys that love basketball. It's a 5-man game, right? You got your center, that's the big guy, so that's federal. You got your power forward, that's your state. You got your small forward, that's your county, that's me. And then you have your shooting guard, that is the city. And then you have your point guard, that's the person that really controls the tempo of the game. And that's you, the voter. So the voter is the point guard in the game. Now, so for me, the county level of government, and it's not exclusive to our state, they're county commissioners. We have 88 counties in Ohio, and we're the largest Democratic county in the state. We used to be the largest population. I think Franklin or Delaware has exceeded the population. So we're like, we go back and forth between 1, 2, and 3. Anyway, what we do is we're described as the safety net when it comes to public services. So when they need help with food insecurity, when they need help with drug addiction, when they need help with healthcare, we're tied into Metro Health. We provide public health services. We provide the services relative to public safety. We oversee the sheriff. We oversee the county court. So we have, I shouldn't say the court is a separate division, they have their own, but we allocate the budget. So we are the overseers of the finances when it comes to county government. We don't hire and fire. We oversee the budget and we make the laws and put into policy to try to make sure that those that what the executive branch, which is county executive Armin Budish, is doing is really making an impact in the community.
Okay, that wasn't long-winded. That was that was good. Thank you. Hey, Cameron, thanks for joining us. So again, as we said, if you have some questions, please do post your questions, even if it's not on the county level. Anything that has politics, if you have some concerns. And, and particularly, I've started doing this because I have recently hearing another false lexicon, which, we talked about briefly, and it just irks me, is that, the Democratic Party, they take us for granted, or they don't care about us. And, we had a little bit of dialogue, and, it's this whole gamut across the state, and people have different perspectives. And so I think you make a really great point, because the fifth man on the team is the voter. And so you can't be taken advantage of or for granted if you are in the game.
That's right.
You are in the game and you are playing. You can't be taken for granted. It's when you're sitting on the sideline.
You go riding the bench.
You're not even a cheerleader, right? At least if you're a cheerleader, you in the game, right? But
yeah.
Bench pointing fingers about they, and it's like, who's the they? Who are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? It's what do you want? You know what I'm saying? So, and so that's my woosah. Got my. What would you like to say to people? Because I make no qualms about it. I am a Democrat. I am voting for the Democratic Party. I don't have a problem with, I don't have a problem with independence. I don't like how sometimes they shake up things, but case in point, we're still a two-party system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have independents and they're there, but they still haven't been strong enough to really sway or make moves. We see Bernie had to come to the Democratic ticket in order to run, because that's the more, so, we have the Tea Party, but when it comes time to put the finger on the ballot, as I said before, Tea Party fall in line with the Republicans. And so, at the end of the day, we're a two-party system until we're not.
Right.
Party is perfect. We all have flaws.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to pick one. And I believe in fixing something from the inside versus, again, being in the stages pointing fingers at everybody. So with that being said, what that you would like to share with people as they have that statement? Because feelings don't always facts, but that's how they feel. So we have to give them some more facts to help them along the way a little bit. So what would you like to share?
So I understand the sentiment. Let me start there, because it does often feel like for Black people that our voices aren't being heard, our issues aren't being taken seriously. But locally, here in Cuyahoga County, what I can say, being the first female and the first African American to hold this seat as elected by the people, thank you, making history, I think it demonstrates Cuyahoga County's progressive thinking and understanding that we have a valuable contribution to make to the party. And by putting me in leadership, nothing could be more demonstrative than that. So I don't know that is necessary. I can't say that is the case here locally. But I do, like I said, I understand the sentiment. But to your point, we also have to be in the game, and we also need people at the table it can't just be me and my voice alone. Even on the county council, I didn't get into this part, but it's an 11-member body. And so if Shontel is the only one that feels strongly about this issue, and my other 10 colleagues don't feel the same, then we'll never get anything done. So I say that to say we must have like-minded individuals at the table in order to make sure that our concerns are addressed. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be Black either. Just people who can understand and articulate the concerns and issues relative to our community, and not just understand, but be willing to use their political will and capital to make changes, because that's the other thing. I think historically, as we are having this very long overdue conversation around race and racism, our communication has always been, we've been conditioned to be very careful about what we say, not only to protect ourselves, but because we're concerned about the backlash or the treatment that would come from speaking up and speaking truth to power. We've seen what has been done to some of our great leaders in of the past when they, were bold and courageous and took giant leaps out there to push policies and narratives and push the boundaries of the status quo. It was not well received. The outcome was not always favorable for us. So there's a real, genuine, valid concern relative to stepping out there, speaking truth to power, and also pushing an agenda that has not historically been supported by the majority.
Right.
So that is what I would say. But I think that we can't let that discourage us as Black people from participating in the process just because you feel like you're not being heard. Because, going back again, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the racism issue right now just reveals centuries of mistreatment of Black people. And so it has become a culture and a condition. And so those things don't just change in 40 years that have been ingrained in people for centuries. So I think in the time that we have been afforded the privilege of actually having the freedom to vote, which, 1965, it's that's the reality. Although we were afforded the right long before that, there were so many barriers and Jim Crow laws and things that prohibited us from really exercising that right freely and fairly. And they're still attacking our rights right now to this day.
Right.
It's a little bit more covert. So in the time frame that which we have been given to exercise that right, I think we have made tremendous strides as Black people. So we can't get, it's too soon to get tired now and to think that it's starting to work. Y'all better come on with it.
That's right. So Cordell and Salvatore, thank you for joining. Hey, Yolanda and
Tracy.
Hey, Tracy. Hey, thanks for joining us. Again, if you have questions, any political questions, any political concerns that you have, please post us some questions. I know sometimes you feel like, hey, it's not just a short question, but at least just give us a hybrid or something that you might have as well. Because we want to make sure, and again, my goal isn't to try to just shove my agenda or my perspective, is really to kind of inform and engage individuals to be more engaged in the process. And as I shared last time, that, I beseech everyone to take time to understand the political system. And I think in learning that system of politics is, as you said, the federal level, the state level, the regional level, the local level, we'll understand a little bit more of how the pieces of the puzzle come together and how it really does have a direct impact on our lives, you know? And so here's the thing that, I hear some people say, as they were talking, I won't mention no names, so I don't want to give him any credit, but it just burned my soul, which is kind of how we started doing this. And I just want him to stay on the Breakfast Club and talk about rap and stay out of
God.
Especially when you don't even vote,
That hurt me to my core, but I was like, you doing all of this and you didn't do the one thing. Now, when it comes to power, and platforms are very powerful, so that is one thing. But when it comes to power as a nation, and we talk about equality and fairness, the vote is the one thing where we have that levels the playing field. Whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, whether you're Republican or Democrat, Jewish, Christian, GED to PhD, everybody gets one vote. No matter how much money you have in the bank, everybody just gets one vote. So it's important that we utilize our power when we can and not take it for granted, because that is one of the most powerful tools we have in our arsenal, regardless of our socioeconomic conditions. So as long as you are 18 years old, you can have an impact on how we're shaping our nation. So go on.
Yeah. No, and you're right. No, you're right. And like to put, I always want to put a little bit of context to that. So for example, when we hear, these large corporations or these wealthy individuals writing these large checks, making a donation to whoever's whoever coffers who's running for office or whatever, they're making these large donations to their campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's nice. You don't have to write a large check because they can write $20 million to whoever. They are known, that person who wrote that check for $20 million still only has one vote. So you are just as powerful in making decisions as the person who wrote that $20 million.
Yeah.
And your point that you stated earlier, like we go to local city hall meetings or whatever, and there's nobody there, right? But yet still we'll come back and complain and say, okay, maybe this is my property taxes are too high, or they're not, changing the potholes in my community, and so I've shared that our world has changed these days, where we, particularly as African Americans, are no longer we call civically engaged.
Right.
Civics is also still politics because politics is how you slice it hot. That's all it really is, right?
Yeah.
And our civic engagement was kind of formulated and always kind of corralled through the institution of the church, right?
Yeah.
So now that we're not, that's a whole nother conversation, but the church isn't the center of leading civic engagement anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're no longer our brother's keeper. We are no longer a community or collectivism. Like we live in communities and we don't even know who our neighbors are anymore. Where there used to be a time where you knew kid could walk down the street and everybody.
Street. Everybody on the street and across the street and behind neighbor and all that stuff. Yeah. So
right. So therefore it's like, so how can we, or first share what's the power we are losing by not continuing our civic engagement, to a little bit, and I'm sorry if I catch you off guard, because what I really like to do is kind of make things substantive, like to really connect the dots for people about, if you want something done, first of all, speak it. Like you said, you went to one meeting and one meeting led you to where you are. So like the level of getting back engaged civically in our communities and not, and just making a rant on social media ain't it.
Right.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I love you. You're kindred spirits, but okay. So the thing that I think we lose a couple of things. We lose that sense of community, number one. And so in losing that sense of community, we lose pride and ownership. That sense of pride, and not that we have to physically own the property, but just pride of ownership of our community. Just on its face. Just I grew up as my mom, when I was growing up, my mom rented, but she was, the landlord was very meticulous and very, concerned about how the yard looked and, and was very strict on us on how we maintain the property, so the civic engagement, if we're not doing that, we lose that sense of onus and responsibility, I believe. And it's easy. It makes it easy too to say it's them, because now I haven't, that's what I elected them to do. We are a representative democracy for sure. But if you aren't holding me accountable, and if you aren't paying attention to what I'm doing, and if you don't pat me on the shoulder and say, Shontel, how can we get so and such a thing done? Then suddenly it's going to start shifting to what Shontel wants.
That's right.
It's only gonna. So my personal agenda becomes the priority, and I've seen it happen too many times that the idea of public service gets lost, and suddenly the elected official is treating the constituents as if the constituents work for them instead of the fact that we work for the constituents. Right. So that is the thing that I would say, that when you don't participate, not only are you less informed, But you lose that onus and you lose the leverage of holding your elected officials accountable. I hope that makes sense. So that is, and I say that in multiple audiences, is that my campaign platform has never been a promise, if you will, because I understand how government works. I can't just get something done on my own. I need buy-in and support from my colleagues before I start telling you I'm going to make college free. I can't make college free. I'm going to repair all the potholes on the street. I can't do that unless my colleagues say, we're going to set aside some budget money for you to do that, unless it's out of my own pocket. So you have to also understand that these political promises that people make in hopes of, winning your vote. We also have to be astute enough and use discernment to know whether or not that is something that they can even achieve realistically on their own. So that's what I would say to that. Right. And pardon me, I see Christy Burris has a question. Talk about that. Can you read? I don't have.
I'm a transplant from Ohio to Virginia and am currently working with my city council president on an issue dear to my heart. If I am no longer an Ohioan, but would like to introduce the proposal there, how would I go about doing so?
Okay, so she's no longer an Ohioan and would like to introduce it to Virginia? No, vice versa. Okay, so go ahead.
The other way around. She lives in Virginia now, but she wants to propose a particular issue.
In Ohio. Okay, so
she's from Ohio, so she got a vested interest here in Ohio too, but she lives in Virginia.
Okay, all right, perfect. So my suggestion would be to, if it's, depending on what that issue is, if it's a state issue, if it's a city issue, if it's a state issue, then you would need to get to know who is your state representative, who is your state senator, and get to know who they are and present the idea to them. And that is really how government should work. I can't take credit for this, but I got it from Cory Booker, and he said it in reference to DC, but I say it in reference to government. Change doesn't come from government, it comes to government. So when you bring us an idea or an issue and it makes sense, it is incumbent on us as your public servant to try to get that issue before our colleagues and to try to make some change there. So that is how that's one way. And then the other way, which is the heavy lift, would be to maybe try to get it on the ballot yourself. And so the way you get those things on the ballot isn't easy, because if it was easy, then more people would do it. But the path of least resistance and the easiest thing to do would be to try to find a state representative, preferably your own, because they're divided up into territories. Well, let's say it's a Democratic issue for whatever that issue is, but you have a Republican representative. So you probably will be challenged to even get this idea before that individual. You might have to tap on the shoulder of another individual in that level of government to say, hey, I've got an idea. And it wouldn't hurt to try to figure out of the representatives in that state or the issue, who leans towards that issue you're talking about. Like for county council right now, and even before this was popular, I've always been about disparity, making sure Black people get their fair share. How are we being represented? Are we being helped? Parnell Jones is also passionate about this issue, but his base is, he comes from the educational component, where it talks about high school students, closing the achievement gap, and Students with Promise is a platform and an issue that he aggressively makes sure gets funding from the county council. Sunny Simon, she's an environmental person. She loves to, the trees and the water and all of those things. And so if you introduce an idea like that to her, or protecting animals, she's going to be all about it. You have Jack Strawn, my Republican counterpart. He's all about business development and corporate stuff. So if you had an idea about that, he might be willing to entertain it. So getting to know your government and the people that represent and what, the things that the seats that they hold, and trying to speak their language can get you a long way. I hope
yeah. And so Christy, I would just add some more context to that. Is what she's saying is, if you're working with your legislator in Virginia, ask him to help you introduce it to Ohio, right? So use the relationship that you have to broaden it to other areas that you want to go, because that's part of what that relationship is also about. And so, or if you already have a relationship or know someone in the Ohio area, you can introduce it directly to them. But I'm a believer in, starting with the relationship you already have. Like, even for myself, I lived in DC for several years and was very involved in politics, know everyone from all the legislative levels. And so I just had this thought when this whole coronavirus things happened as it relates to small businesses and things like that. And I was like, let me call him up, because I want to get this idea out to him and get his feedback from it a little bit. And so because he's a legislator, and he was like, oh, okay. So he helped me tweak it and so now I at least have an outline or robust platform that I can kind of go and start with here in Ohio. But I know that he'll also be advocating for me in Maryland as well. So it start with the relationship you have to then be able to leverage to where you want to go. And so Kenneth, thank you for joining us. Hey, I see you there. Jamaica, thank you. Cecil, Gwen, thank you for joining. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, Bev, thank you for joining as well. And so I have a pooch who is all of a sudden, I'm like, you don't stop. So thank you for sharing that. And so here, as we talk about
to Miss Burris, I hope I'm saying that right. I hope that was helpful to her.
Yeah. Well, we followed up and she said thank you. So to follow up a little bit with that, because you brought up a good point, and that is the system of politics isn't as easy as saying, hey, I'm gonna just throw this out here. I want a new stop sign, maybe at the corner of the street, or I want, we're talking about free education, or like whatever it is. Like, there's a process. And so even though you can work with your legislators, you make a good point, like policy comes to government for them to, it's still a process that now while they're in there, they have to work at it. And so the more people that you also build a coalition for your cause, to get more legislative people to listen, the easier it is for them to help move that policy or that topic through as well, because like you said, you still have to go, you can present something, but you can still have your other cohorts that you have to get that process through. And so I would say, so give it to us in person. So on a scale of 1 to 10, here's a thought, like how challenging. 10 is like really challenging and 1 is like easy peasy. When you do come up with just a general, or let's say a new concept, right, of something, to try to move that through from your experience to get that accomplished.
It depends on what it is. So can I give a couple of examples of what I've been able to witness firsthand, so and deliver also. So when I first came on to county council, a dear constituent who's hearing impaired brought it to our attention that we did not have text 911. So those who were hard of hearing or hearing impaired had no means to contact the emergency services easily.
Okay.
So when I heard that, and this individual wasn't in my district, but it was a concern, because again, my thing is about leveling the playing field and making sure that, those who are underserved and overlooked, and often that's people of color, but it's also ADA, people with disabilities, get the tools and resources that they need. So when I heard that, I jumped right on it, because I also have a nephew who has special needs. And so I'm like, especially when things become real personal to you, they become issues that you really want to push. But he was maybe 5 at the time. So, but anyway, nonetheless, you think about how this could impact people, and there's 25,000 people in Cuyahoga County that are hearing impaired or deaf, and so that seemed like a no-brainer to me, right. and it was, and so getting that done on easy peasy being 1 and challenging being a 10, it was like a maybe a 2. That was easy. Now, on the other hand, my colleague, County Councilwoman Simon, she introduced banning the plastic bag legislation, and that was like a 9 because people were not, everybody wasn't all overjoyed about getting rid of their plastic bags and inconveniencing their life and changing the rules and all these things. So that was a 9. The equality legislation, making sure that the LGBTQ community had some type of legal recourse if they were to lose their job or lose their home. That was like an 8 or a 9 too. So it just depends on what it is. And another one that I got passed that I'm particularly proud of most recently is my girl Honey Bell Bay. She is the poet laureate. So she reached out to me again. She's not in my district, but she said, "Hey, can you help me get this done? I'd like to be the Cuyahoga County Poet Laureate." And I said, "Well, do you need money for that?" It's like, how much does that cost? So that's always the question in politics. Like, how much is it going to cost? So we have to do cost analysis and studies and all that stuff. She was like, "No, I just want to volunteer," And so I'm like, "Well, let me look into it." And I never promise anybody anything. I'm like, let me look into it first and get back to you. And I'm also the type of person that will tell you, "Nah, we can't do that. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to lead you on and be like, yeah, I'm working on it. I'll just be like, no, because I feel like this, like, I might run into you at the grocery store or the clinic. I don't need to be trying to duck Tiffany like, oh, shoot, I told her I was going to get that. I ain't do that. Like, no, I don't have time for that in my life. I'd rather get it for the truth than, cool, because I've been stringing you along. Like, I don't need that in my life. So I'll just tell you. So.
So thank you for sharing that, because that's important to understand, like, really how difficult it is, because it's 2 points. I mean, it's 2 parts to that. It's, being involved, but then understanding that it takes work and it's a process to get things changed, especially if you're changing something. Like, my biggest pet peeve in this area are point of sales in these municipalities. Like, not just because I'm a realtor, even when I first moved here and I was trying to, bought my first investment property, and they do it nowhere else in the United States, nowhere else. So when I came back here, and they was like, "What you mean a point of sale?" I was like, so it irks my soul. So I've been working with various places here. Now, it doesn't move as fast as I would like, and I'm very upset still. However, I've been seeing, things change. And, now I'm not going to lie. If it was, I would say it's a 7.5, 8 on a Richter scale of how it gets on my nerves. Now, if it was a 10, I would be out here moving heaven and earth right now. But it's really not, it's just more of an annoyance, inconvenience, you know what I'm saying? So, and I see some changes kind of coming along, but, to your point, it's a lot to take on and get done. So
let me ask you about that, if I may, because when you talk about point of sale, they're different in every municipality, right? These point of sale inspections.
The sore spot, you sure you want to go?
No, that's a yes or no, Tiffany.
Yes, it's different, because everything about where we live, and we have all these different municipalities, everything is different and everything.
Okay, so to that point, all right, Woosah, come on, rub your ears, Woosah. So that's funny that you bring that up, because ACAR, who I know you're familiar with, they are extremely supportive. I love Jamie over there. Shout out to Jamie. She's a supporter, and I consider her a political friend. But one of the things that she asked me to do was one of the things I was asked, because I go visit them and I talk about it. That was one of their pet peeves as a collective, is that it would be nice if the county had one way of just doing point of sales. But therein lies, that's a 10. That's a 10 on trying to get it done, because now you have to get buy-in from 59 municipalities. We have 59 municipalities here in Cuyahoga County, and I represent 10 of them: Bedford, Bedford Heights, Cleveland Wards 1 and 4, Highland Hills, North Randall, Orange, Pepper Pike, Shaker Heights, Warrensville Heights, and Woodmere. For the people who are watching that are not from this area, that is the most diverse you can get. Is from some of the more impoverished communities to some of the more affluent communities. So I have every gamut, and it is the most reflective of the county as a whole. So it's 60% Caucasian, 30% Black, and 10% other. Like, it is truly the most reflective of Cuyahoga County. So it's hard to put together something where people have to relinquish something that they strongly believe in. Like Shaker Heights, theirs are some of the strictest. And then you've got other communities, maybe like a Bedford, who's some of the most lenient, and so trying to bring that together is not an easy undertaking. So when you're trying to change people's individual charter jurisdiction rules, that becomes increasingly hard. So.
Right. And so to your point about doing this is why it's funny, is because when we step back and take an aerial view again, so like when I have the conversation and I say, no one else in the entire country, municipalities, how about all these other states? There's no one else in this whole entire country except for Northeast Ohio who does this. Don't you dare have that conversation in Shaker Heights, but this is how we all, and they'll turn red on you.
And it also provides, and you can correct me on this because I'm not an expert, but I have heard, just different things, but it's a source of revenue. It's a revenue. Well, no, okay, all right. I was gonna say, if it's a revenue stream, if it's a revenue stream, Tiffany, it's about to be a 12 on the on the scale of 1 to 10, because nobody is trying to give up their pots of revenue.
So, but this is a wonderful point about learning the system of politics, right? Because, and we could talk details about this offline, is that because when you pull back the onion, it's undergird, it really is about demographics. Mm-hmm. I call it racial. I am going to call it demographics, because even in all of our municipalities, we don't have it on the west side of Cleveland. Predominantly,
wow,
the areas and neighborhoods that are predominantly of people
that look like us,
right? Wow. The undertone. And so what happens is next generations and the ideology in this area, which again, like coming back home, I run into this all the time, but this is how we've always done it. Like that mentality, but this is why we also, whatever this conversation was about why we did something continues to go on, whether or not it really makes sense or not, and so so you froze up a little bit here for me. So I'm not sure if we lost you here. Hey, Cliff, thanks for joining. I see you there. Hey, Daryl. Hey, Patrick, I appreciate you coming on. Hey, Nike, thanks for coming. So I'm not sure if we lost Shontel. It seems like she froze up here, at least on my end. And so here, what I would like to do is, we're almost getting to a few more moments towards the end as well, is I would love for people to reach out. So again, Shontel is with District 9. She's the Cuyahoga County representative for District 9, and she talked about the locations that she represents. She is also sharing about her process and her experience about getting into the county, what she does there. And so my last question to her was going to be, what are some tools and tips that she would like to share with people about how to get more involved? So I know, Cliff, you had stated before, and there's other people who have reached out to me afterwards, and they were like, not only did I need to represent or learn more about the system, there was things that I forgot and I didn't realize. And so, help me understand. So I would just share that people take time to, at the end of the day, become more civically engaged, right? And civic engaged means, what can I do as an individual to be more involved in my local community? What is it that I can do to be more involved? Because politics really is local. The things that have a direct impact on the quality of our lives and our day-to-day living is our local politics. Because again, I gave the example about the point of sale. That has a direct impact on what I do occupationally, has a direct impact on what I do from investment and personally. And so I have to be engaged to be able to have a way to change that system that, you know, that particular point that has a direct impact on my pocket isn't about who I get in touch with on the federal level. You know, hold on, we got you back there with us?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear? That's okay. You froze up a little bit. Okay, so
my apologies. You were into it too.
So thank you for jumping back in. So here, as we were getting ready to wrap up, I was sharing with them about being involved, getting involved, and staying involved. So the last question on the table as we was getting ready to wrap up was, what can you share with people about what they can do in their role of being involved and getting involved? And I call it being civically engaged, but any level that they want to participate in.
Well, I feel like if you don't know those 5 players on your team, and that consists of more than one person that represents your levels of government. So if you don't know who your congressperson is, if you don't know who your U.S. senator is, if you don't know who your state rep is, your state senator is, if you don't know who your county council representative is, if you don't know who your city council member is, I would respectfully ask you to start there so that you know who these individuals are, because each of them has a very important impact on your everyday life. The simplest thing, though, if you're not into doing homework and that type of thing, the simplest thing to do would be to register to vote. Just make sure you're registered, and everyone that you know in your household is registered to vote. And actually voting, participating in the political process. It is just way too important for us not to do it. And then the other thing that's very important, which I think caught your attention, is to participate in the census. Just please, it comes around every 10 years. It is the tool that governments use to determine the allocation of representation that we have. So when we talk about having those voices that hear our concerns and are prepared to address them, part of that is going to be relative to the census and our population. The thing that we also have to be concerned about in Ohio specifically is that our population has declined. We currently have 16 representatives for Congress in Ohio. While our political demographic is 50-50 when it comes down to whether you're a registered Democrat or a registered Republican. Our representation is not reflective of that because of the way gerrymandering is done. So we only have 4 Democrats and 12 Republicans. But the census could help us with that, because if our population goes down, we may not have 16 representatives. We may only have 15. And we will potentially lose some. We could potentially lose a representative, and then they would reconfigure it. And God forbid that we end up with 3 Democrats and only 12, and still 12 Republicans if they had their way. So register to vote, and participate in the census. And I'll leave you with the acronym SERVE. The SERVE acronym: study the issues, study the candidates. E, educate yourself and others once you've studied. R, register to vote. And if you're too young to register to vote, register others to vote. V, obviously, is engage. Remain engaged in the process. Voting is just the first step. Know what these people are doing once you put them in office, and hold us accountable.
So I'm going to repeat that because it's worthy of repeating, and you were breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and so what she said is that her acronym was SERVE. 1, to make sure you study the process, study the levels of politics. 2, E, educate yourself on what's going on, who your local elective officials are, your local, meaning like your county council, your city council, your mayor. You want to do your regional. You want to know who your state representative is, who your state senators is, and then also on the federal level, of course, you want to educate and know who all of your representatives are for where you live. R is to register to vote, register you, and if you're too young, then help register other people. V is definitely not only register, but when it's time to get out and vote. And then last E is to engage in the process. And so the reason that this is becoming very, very important to me is because, and Cliff, we talked about, he has a question, COVID-19. And that helped me think of this. The reason that this is important to me, because we have no idea what is getting ready to happen in November. We don't know if we're going to be back out voting. We don't know if we're going to have to vote by mail. We don't know what's what. So what I am so passionate about is that no matter what, that I can instill enough passion and engagement with people that no matter what, they get out and vote. And it struck me because I had a friend who lived in the DC area, and she made a post in their primary. She was in line for 5 hours.
Wow.
She got out of the poll. It was after midnight. And that's a level of dedication and commitment that initially I'm not even quite sure if I was in my mind as much, and I'm like 5 hours. And because they had to wipe down and they had limited locations and all of this, and so I want to get out and then plant the seeds, and people like, I don't care what we get, and I want to corral you and get services and assistance from you and the other Democrats. That we got to have line dance parties and have pool parties and food trucks, DJs or whatever, so that if it's going to take us 9, 10, however many hours, we stay in line to make sure we vote. Or if we're going to have to vote by mail, that we're diligent enough to do whatever, however we need to do it. November, we need to do it. And so this is
November 3rd. Yep, that's election day.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think, and I hope I'm not breaking up still, but what I will say too, I'll try to make it quick, is that in Ohio, we are one of the places where we actually have decent early voting parameters. So we can vote early, and you don't have to wait until November 3rd. In fact, I would encourage you not to wait until November 3rd. And the other thing you can do right now, if you are registered to vote, you can put in your request for your ballot application right now. So that first week in October, when they mail out the applications, then you'll receive yours. You'll already get yours. Now the legislature right now is trying to make it so that everybody gets that application sent to their house, because with our primaries, you have to identify party affiliation. So that's why they don't blanketly do it, but they should still do it. But that's why they say they don't do it.
Right.
So and that's the Secretary of State. But anyway, the general election, we don't have that. You don't have to identify your party affiliation, because the primaries are closed primaries. So you have to pick your party, so you make sure you get the right ballot. But that's not an obstacle or hurdle that we'll have to worry about in the general. So you can make that step right now, and to ensure that when the early vote comes around, and if you don't want to risk being in the crowds or risk your health or whatever the unforeseen circumstances might hold, you can cast your ballot early by mail from the safety and comfort of your own home early.
Good. So our time is wrapped up. And so if you can share with us really quick how people can get in touch with you. I normally do that in the middle, but we got so engaged in conversations or whatever. And there were some questions that we didn't get a chance to really answer. So if people want to get in touch with you, can you share your
contact with me? My contact?
Yeah.
I'll give it to you quick.
Okay. I tell you what, instead, because she's breaking up.
My calls are coming in. So I got S. Brown.
Okay, don't worry about it. I will share her information in the post. I will get that information out to everyone who is interested. I'm trying to get it to the finger my tip. So here we go. If you want to contact her, you can contact Shontel at sbrown@cuyahogacounty.us. Again, sbrown@cuyahogacounty.us. And so, if you have any questions and would like to get more involved, thank you so much, Christy. I love you. You always help me out and put this stuff up there for me. Thank you so much. Yes, sbrown@cuyahogacounty.us. Yes. Reach out to her. You ask questions, how you can get more involved. And to Cliff, you asked the really good questions. Like sometimes there's information that's going on and you don't know. What we will always say is the more involved you become, the more information you are able to obtain for yourself. So please do get out, get involved, get aware of what's going on day to day. And as always, you can reach me at asktiffanyh@gmail.com. Please take time to go and follow me on Instagram at ask_TiffanyH on Instagram and Twitter. ask_TiffanyH. And of course, I'll be here from time to time providing information on Facebook Live. So thank you so much. I think she was able to still try to join in and didn't quite come in yet, which is okay. But I thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone, your questions, your support, and your engagement. And so please, please, please tune in to the next session, our next information section as well. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Take care.